and welcome to today's episode of Rise Up, Voices from the Frontlines. And today we're going to talk about something that we don't often get to talk about. We're going to take a journey through what it's like to have a first responder family. So we're going to talk to someone who is married to someone who's married to someone who does a similar job. And this is a really fun conversation because some of you guys know that my husband is a firefighter and that I did my work in EMT as an EMT and in crisis response and in investigations. So we have a really not frequently found dynamic of knowing what each other's going through and being able to talk about anything and really understand each other. And with the work that we do at Battle to Be, we often run into families that are falling apart. And we've noticed that the families that seem to be thriving are those families that are more closely tied to service in some form or another. So I want to bring Gina to the show. Hi, Gina.
Hi.
I think this is a really fun topic because it lets us explore some places where science is really behind the times. We haven't really done the research and we haven't created the models of what creates a really successful responder relationship or family life. But we do have a lot of anecdotal stories and our own experiences to go off of. So let's start at the beginning of your life and your childhood. And did you always know that you wanted to be a police officer?
I would say yes. However, the way I was brought up, I was told that was not something that a girl would go do. So pretty traditional, I'd say, Italian family, and was told that that's just not something that would be a good fit for me. I was also a little bit on the smaller side, and so was told there's no way you're going to be able to handle yourself in a fight or anything like that. So really discouraged from doing that, and through some pretty significant life changes much later in life. I think it was 38, 37, something like that. Decided to do a ride along with a deputy friend. I was in the process of getting into law school, did a ride along and was like, oh, well, there it is. This is what I need to do. So went that route.
So other people's beliefs and other people's ideas held you back for that long?
Yeah, a long time. Yeah. Family, ex-spouse. I mean, kind of a big combination of things. When you have that many people telling you what you can and can't do, it forms your own opinions, I guess, in that sense. So sadly,
that's a lot of influence.
It does. And I try to take that into account now, raising my own kids, ensuring that I let them figure out what they want to do, whatever that is, as random as it could be.
And with kids, it often is seemingly very random from our perspectives.
Yeah, I have a 9-year-old that told me she wants to be a baker and an actress. And I was like, all right, like, you do you.
So you came into police work very late.
I did. Yeah. I did things kind of backwards. Graduated high school, went into community college, and then ended up getting married super young and decided to stop. I was, I think, one class away from getting my AA and was like, oh, I'll get married and I'll just go back, which we all know that it's really, really hard to go back to school later in life. Started a family. My older daughter had some health issues, which required a lot of care on my part, which was great. I was very fortunate that I was able to be there. And, just life kind of continued on. I started seeing things going a bit, I guess, sideways, we'll say, in my marriage, and decided I should go back to school. And that's when I decided on law school. Always really passionate about law, the legal system, just found it very fascinating, the whole process of it all. And like I said, always had this underlying desire to be an officer, and was told that was just not possible for me. And when I saw that opportunity and was encouraged by that friend of mine, I jumped on it and, it took off from there.
So as a woman
Hmm.
going through the academy,
Hmm.
what did that look like for you?
So that, yeah, that was interesting. Predominantly, I mean, it's predominantly male for sure. I had a lot of female instructors that were pretty inspiring, one of which I keep in touch with still, probably daily. But very intimidating. That was when I actually first met my husband. He's what, 6'5", and I'm maybe 5'3" on a good day. And we happen to be in, line seated next to each other all the time, whatnot. So it was really intimidating to be standing next to people like that. I mean, there's still that voice in the back of your mind that you're, 5'3". How are you going to be able to put up a fight or be able to do your job just as well as these people standing next to you? But it didn't take long for me to realize there was a lot more to it than just being able to fight. There's a lot more that goes into this job than the majority of it. I firmly believe is talking, relating to people. So being a female, though, I mean, there's some challenges that come into play with that. There's a lot of judgment. I myself, I'm not saying that all females are like this, but myself, I'm not physically as strong as, say, my husband. I can't do a lot of the things. I can't overpower people the way that he can, but I have other things that I can do. So.
Right. I think it's really important to look at the skill set
Hmm.
of an individual, because
Yes.
oftentimes in police work, some of the soft skills, some of the connection and communication and relationship skills are undervalued, but they
Yeah.
really are the most important skills that you can have, because
Right.
you're not in a gunfight every day. You're
No.
not wrestling a suspect down every day. What
Right.
you're doing every day is communication and connection and relationship, and building that bridge between the community and law enforcement. So in some ways you have innate advantages, and in
Yeah.
some ways there are disadvantages, and
Yeah.
every individual is going to have a different set of
Right.
skills. So
Right.
there's not better, there's just difference.
Different. Yep. Exactly. And I think that's where I noticed it more so in academy with whoever your squad mates were, whoever you were working with or partnering with at the time. It was great when you complemented each other in that sense. When you had differences, but you could both utilize your skills, it seemed to be the most effective, and you could manage a call or an incident that much faster, healthier, better all around for everyone else. So
And I think that's the key foundation for all relationships,
I would agree.
right?
Yep.
Finding that way to complement each other.
Hmm.
So you met your husband at work.
I did, yes. Like I said, in academy, we were friends. We were both going to be working for the same agency. He had been a firefighter on the East Coast previously, and was trying to get on with the fire department in a larger city here, and it's really hard to get on with. Decided to try his hand at policing, which drives me nuts because he's good at literally everything he decides to do. And he nailed it. And we met. We were great friends. And he was just super supportive, super understanding of the challenges I was facing as a single parent. Going through that, having 3 daughters while going through that was not an easy task by any means. Staying up all night studying, getting kids where they need to be, coordinating rides, sports, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, we met there, and then he ended up actually leaving that agency and going on to fire. He ended up getting on with the agency he wanted, and obviously things took off from there as far as our relationship. He re-entered the policing side of it, working full-time as a firefighter and full-time as a police officer for the town that we live in currently.
That's a lot.
It is a lot, yeah. But I'm sure, as you know, the firefighting schedule is much more forgiving than the police schedule, so it allows for that.
So I love having these conversations, because people see my husband and I in
Hmm.
public, and they don't know the struggles and the intensity of the relationship and the things that we go through,
Hmm.
things that we do. They just see us interacting in public, and people often will say, I'm so jealous of your relationship, your
Yeah.
communication and connection is just, you guys are so connected and you're so
Yep.
like, I can see how much you love each other. And
Hmm.
I swear that that comes from, we go through everything together. Like we're in the
Yep.
industry together. We do the calls out. We get called out together. We
Yep.
go to the same scene. We work
Yep.
different aspects of it, but we go together. So
Yep.
I never have to hide anything. I never have to pretend I didn't have a horrific day or that
Yep.
what I saw I can't talk about.
Hmm.
So how valuable is that for you in your relationship?
It's huge. So when, like I said, when my husband left the initial police department he was with, I was still with that department, and then he went to the fireside. I would still see him on calls. We worked in the same area, which again, just talk about meant to be. There were so many aspects here that it would fall into place. So I'd see him on calls. Um, it was great because it allowed me to get to know the fire side of things a lot more, see things from their perspective as far as what they wanted for scene security. We jab at each other quite a bit, obviously, first responders, second responders, that whole thing. But it was just, we could have really detailed conversations about both of our perspectives on the scene. It allowed me to be a better officer, things that I missed. I mean, we all miss things. Definitely allowed him to be a better firefighter, knowing what I'm dealing with on the other side of things. Lack of staffing, I mean, which is all over with police departments right now. Fire would get frustrated that they aren't getting the scene security, but then when you have someone that's directly there, directly related, and can convey that, it helps. It helps to have a better understanding. And I think it did help, at least in his station. I've been told this multiple times. It's helped to kind of bridge that gap. We all have conversations about what a certain scene was like, or a certain event or trauma, and having that additional perspective from both sides is just, it's huge. And there's no secrets. I don't come home from a shift stressed out because of a shooting that I was on. Either he was on the same shooting, or he can relate. He knows, if I'm frustrated with a coworker, he probably knows who that coworker is, and vice versa. I mean, it allows for the most open and honest communication where you feel completely supported and like there's nothing to hide, which is huge.
I honestly believe this is the core of the divorce statistics that we're seeing, is
Yeah.
that inability to be open and honest and free with
Hmm.
a partner that isn't part of the family. And
Right.
that culture of us versus them, you're inside or you're outside. And even if you're married to it, you're still outside.
Yeah.
And how can you have a relationship with someone that you can't be open and honest with? Just,
Right.
it creates that friction. No matter how good everything else is, you always have that friction of the secrets and the confidentiality and the inability to put the burdens on them of what you experience because they might not be able to handle it.
Exactly. It's also been beneficial for me because my in-laws, were super close to them. Spent tons of time with them. My father-in-law was a firefighter, a career firefighter, and my mother-in-law was a nurse. And so our family dynamic, I'm sure, is interesting to say the least when we're all around each other. The level of sarcasm is pretty high. But it's just really refreshing to be able to speak just really openly about what's gone on, and the ability for all of us to read one another is another huge thing. I don't have to really say that I had a bad day. They generally can pick up on it pretty quick,
Right?
which is huge.
So let's talk about something a little bit funny. Raising kids
Hmm.
in a household that has first responder humor.
Yeah.
Where have you seen that show up?
Um, Epic, I would say, again, epic level of sarcasm. The dark humor is definitely there. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, like my 9-year-old actually said that, or they're definitely a little bit more, I don't know if numb is the right word, but accustomed to conversation that maybe other people would be uncomfortable with. We speak pretty frankly, I mean, we don't give any gruesome details about things, but my kids definitely know where our morals are, where our values are. And they also have an understanding of a little bit more about what goes on in the world, the real life, what's actually happening out on the streets, what's happening in households. Obviously, I can't give names of families and that sort of thing, but with my kids, they have a little bit more of an understanding or better recognition when they see some unhealthy traits or things going on with kids at school. It's amazing to me how quickly they can recognize there's probably other things going on at home, or can put together the pieces of, things floating around on Facebook, things that are going on. They can kind of put it together and understand, oh, that's probably all related. I mean, it's just, they have more insight into behind the scenes, I guess.
I often wonder, as parents, we try to protect our kids from the dark side of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
We often don't talk about, I mean, my kids, same way. They grew up knowing what was going on. I was investigating human trafficking. They heard about it.
Right.
So what people are capable of, and, that there's sex offenders in your neighborhood, and that, someone's parents aren't necessarily good.
Yep.
Just because you like this kid doesn't mean I'm going to let you go spend the night over there, because I have information that you don't necessarily have, and I don't really want that to happen. So
exactly. Yep.
that inability to trust just naturally, because we know that there's more to the story. There's more to humanity. There's more out there than most people see.
The biggest thing we tell our kids, I'd say, is trusting your gut with things. That's huge. I mean, we're told that as first responders, trust your gut. It's usually when you ignore that something goes sideways. And with my daughters, had a lot of great conversations about that, where there's just something off, a friend that's acting off, maybe not being very nice to them, but something just doesn't seem right. And sometimes I'll have a little bit more insight, like you said, into something that's being investigated or something that's going on. But other times it's just them saying, hey, like, I don't know, something's weird, something's not right here. Usually they're right. And, it's not always instantly that you know exactly what that is, but there's definitely kind of, I don't know if it's like a sixth sense that's passed on. I don't know how to explain it. Or it's just learned behavior. I don't know.
And situational awareness.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. My middle daughter would go on ride-alongs with me quite a bit, and holy cow, that kid is absolutely amazing at catching things. And to the point that then, just when she wasn't on a ride-along and she's with her friends, the things that she would see, or she'd recognize situations that were maybe not so safe, or people that weren't the safest. Outstanding intuition when it comes to that. She's spoken of dreams of becoming a corrections officer. That's where her aspirations are. And I mean, she'd be outstanding in this field. I don't know if it's again, learned behavior, or if it's just, they maybe have, I don't know, a different view of the world from us. I don't know.
So much of it is modeled.
Yeah.
So much of what they learn is modeled. Yeah. But then they have their own little personalities too that they layer on top of that.
I'm always worried. I'm personally, and I know my husband feels this way, we're always worried. We don't want to instill any kind of paranoia. How do you walk that fine line of, be aware of your surroundings, trust your gut, but we don't want to instill paranoia, because, I mean, it's easy to kind of tip over that edge there.
I think it's a very challenging line, to be honest, and open with your kids and tell them about the vulnerabilities of being human and the capacity for evil that exists.
Right.
And what we see every day, but to also manage to allow them to be free to explore the world around them with confidence.
Right.
And not in the state of fear.
Right. Exactly.
And to feel like they have some power and control over their own experiences. So definitely a challenge that a lot of parents probably don't have to think about.
No, and the, still tempering our conversation, because my husband and I'll get rolling talking about an incident, and sometimes you're not thinking about it, and we're speaking pretty bluntly about whatever we saw that might be pretty graphic and horrifying to people. And, you know, your kids are right there, or you don't realize they're within earshot. So it's always trying to catch yourself and balance it.
Yeah. The filter is the funny one. Even still trying to be careful about, it's mostly body part conversation, but
yes,
that tends to get out of line. And it's not, I think a lot of people don't understand that first responder humor or dark humor or gallows humor, whatever you want to call it, that it is a defense mechanism to get through the situation, that it's sometimes what is required to discharge the energy. We're going to scream, we're going to laugh, or we're going to cry.
Yep.
Or we're going to break down. And usually there's a need for focus and just put your head down and get through the situation. And we have to be at our best. So we laugh when it's completely wrong to do so from an outsider's perspective. But it's an energetic discharge that has to happen. And it just permeates every part of our lives afterwards, where it's just funny, because if it's not funny, then we have to look at the fact that it isn't funny. And that's when it starts to hurt. And that's when it starts to be hard to handle.
Yep.
So it's healthy.
Yep, it is.
It's a healthy coping strategy, despite what it looks like from the outside view. It's good for first responders to be able to do that. However, it does get people in trouble.
It does. Yeah.
So have you ever had the school call you and be like, your kid just said this, and you're like, oh my God.
You know, I haven't. I have I guess now that I think about it, I never have actually had them do that. Not to say that it's not coming. But I've had some pretty, I guess, proud moments in a sense with my daughters where they've stood up to people. And I think coming from a first responder family, they know how to do it in an appropriate way. They know how to do it without getting arrested. Without resorting to physical violence. I've had those moments with them for sure, from, my older daughters to my younger ones. I've had some pretty frank conversations, more so with my older daughters. So I have a 23, 21, and a 9-year-old. And my older daughters have seen the side of things as far as sexual harassment, that kind of stuff in the workplace. And hearing how they approach that, how they handle themselves with that. I do think coming from a first responder family, even with me being in it such a short period of time, me being a female, I think they've seen some different things as far as that goes. It's given them, it's kind of empowered them as far as how to respond to things, how to manage them, how to cope with them, whether it's through therapy, talking through it, and again, inappropriate humor. That's always one direction that things go.
So you were injured at work.
I was, yes. It's coming up on a year now, which is kind of mind blowing. Got into a physical altercation with someone who was wanting to self-harm, and initially didn't realize the extent of the injuries. Like many first responders, we kind of push that aside and, oh, I'm fine. I'll be able. Yeah. And unfortunately, that didn't work out so well for me. So our family, we've been dealing with kind of a nightmare of a situation. I have a ongoing spinal leak, which resulted in seizures and a broken back from the seizures. And I mean, it's crazy. But I will say, if I were to spell it all out on paper, and people would be like, how are you guys functioning? How are you thriving? You would think that my husband and I would hate each other at this point with the amount of time and the amount of care he's had to put in for me. And I think the fact, again, that we are first responders, that we're both first responders, has been imperative to us having such a strong marriage and being able to get through this.
So thing that we don't talk about very often also is, as you go into a first responder career, how important it is to have a plan B, because this kind of thing can happen, because you can go in thinking you're gonna retire out, but
Hmm.
What happens when your dream gets taken out from under you by a life-threatening injury?
Yep.
Did you have did you have that in place? Did you know what you wanted to do?
I've always been a person, it's kind of a running joke with people that know me. I have not just a plan B, I have plan C, D, E. I don't want to say I'm a pessimist. I just think I'm a realist. And I try to think of every way that this could go so that I have other options or, can kind of keep myself together. For me, and I think probably for a lot of first responders, because we like to control the scene and all that fun stuff, I need to know what my purpose is. I need to know what my next step is. And it needs to be thought out, planned out, and I need to know how to execute it. And so, our family, I mean, I don't want to say we didn't have anything like, literally written down, but we had a good safety net as far as, finances go, which is super important. And I know a lot of first responders can get into a significant amount of trouble when it comes to that because the overtime's always there and, but the biggest thing is our support system. We don't just lean on first responders for a support system. We maintain friendships outside of that, which I think is super important. But they have to be people that understand or can be understanding, of what you do. And then, yes, leaning on your first responder family, creating and fostering those really strong bonds and relationships with people. So from my first department, because I worked for a big city initially, there's some relationships that I'm eternally grateful for. They came and visited me in the hospital. I mean, they've just been amazing. And then, on the fire side, I can't even begin to say enough about the fire side of things. I've never seen anything quite like it. They've come and done, we have a farm, a family farm, and they've done these huge work parties, shutting down rigs just to come and visit me at the hospital. I mean, where the whole crew would come in all at once. The local fire department shutting down a rig to transport me to the hospital so that it would just be kind of, quiet and, under the radar where I wouldn't be bothered and there would be no issues. I mean, it's amazing, but you need to make sure you have that in place before, because when a crisis happens, it happens fast. It's when you do not expect it, that's for sure. And your whole world gets turned upside down. So you need to have a plan in place for your kids, your pets. I mean, everything kind of needs to be figured out. And I can't stress that enough with people.
So what are you doing now?
Right now, I'm still in the process of recovering, waiting for treatment. I'm awaiting some more procedures that are coming up. And while I'm waiting for that, I just kind of take it one day at a time, which I think is super important. Yesterday was the most lazy day ever with my husband, and that was perfect. We had a day off together. He's taking on the brunt of the farm work. We have a lot of farm animals, and for me, that's kind of my wellness right now. That's my escape from everything. And so we focus on that. We focus on what brings us the most joy and a lot of laughs. We really don't know what the hell we're doing with farming, but we're learning as we go. And yeah, that's what I'm doing. And my husband's, putting in some extra hours with the fire department and doing what he can to pick up, wherever he can. And we have, like I said, so many people that come and help. It's amazing.
So do you feel like your career in the department is at an end?
I don't know. I want to say no, because I have aspirations to continue to do this until, retirement age. Like, I didn't get started at this late in life to end it so quickly. And I mean, I think I was decent at it. I'm still learning. I'm still fairly new. I recognize, just over 5 years on is not that much time in the scheme of things. And just in that time period, policing has changed drastically, that's a whole nother story. I mean, it's just gone a very different direction than from when I entered academy. I will say, going back to what we talked about earlier, as far as being able to talk to people, that's been instrumental in my career in the last few years. I'm a negotiator on the peer support team. I'm a big believer in wellness for officers. and, on the fire side as well, any first responders. I'd like to continue to work in that direction, do what I can to help others. We're trying to use our farm to help people. We've had some friends come that are deputies. We had a organization that helps like recovering addicts and whatnot. We had their staff come to the farm yesterday. So kind of anything we can do to help people get through. And because I know what it's like to deal with a traumatic situation, our whole family does. And so to kind of help people find other ways, other outlets to deal with that stuff. That's my focus right now. And then hopefully down the road, I can get back on the saddle and get back into policing and use those skills.
Wonderful. Is there anything that you want to tell people out there that's like what is your words to live by, or your favorite quote, or what do you want to tell those folks out there that might be stuck or struggling or trying to figure out their relationship?
I've always lived by the quote, and it sounds so cheesy and like cliche, but any quote I feel like comes off that way. It's Michelangelo, and it's Italian. Ancora imparo. It means I'm still learning. And that's kind of just been my motto since I heard it years ago, back in like high school. I think that's important. And I think about that actually on a day-to-day basis. I kind of remind myself of that, because I don't know why I'm going through what I'm going through medically right now, why our family's dealing with this. For my kids to see me in the state that I've been in. I spent 6 weeks in the hospital, which was pretty brutal. But the only answer I can come up with, and it truly does make sense, is that I'm still learning. This is all a process. I'm still learning. I'm still finding my way and things. The day that I can say 100% I know what I'm doing, or I've completely reached my purpose in life, I'm sure that'll be an amazing day, but it's not yet. And so I think it's super important for everybody to keep that perspective. You can always learn more. You can always grow, whether it's with your family, whether it's through your profession, your marriage. Ensure that you're always learning, always adding to that. So.
Absolutely. Awesome. So such good stuff. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure. And I will, if you want to include a link for people to find out more about you or connect with you on social media, we'll add that at the bottom.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much for being with us today. And I hope that this was a fun conversation for you guys to hear, and a different perspective from what we usually get to talk about. So if you have questions or comments that you'd like to leave for us, you can do that. I'll make sure that one of us answers you. And if you want to support this podcast, you can do that at battle2be.org, BATTLE2be.org. And go to our website to find out more about our organization and the ways that we serve those who serve country and community. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.